Asslam-u-Alaikum, my name is Michael Dighton. I'm a Revert Muslim. I was born in Christchurch in 1971. I was raised in a pretty standard Kiwi household. We did go to church. We had a Christian based outlook on life. The family stopped going to church maybe when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and from that point on there wasn't a lot of religious instruction or anything like that, so I had just what you'd probably call a standard white person Kiwi upbringing in Christchurch during the 1970s. My parents were progressive in the sense that they always tried to give us opportunities to meet people from different cultures. So I met several Muslim people in the very early 1980s, probably the Malaysians from Canterbury University might have been the first people I met, engineering students, but we met a lot of different people from different cultures. So when I met Muslims, I was always impressed by their demeanour, the way they had an outlook on life, the way they looked at people in a humanistic way. I was always impressed by them and by education as well, because they were always very well educated. So I always had a positive outlook towards Muslims. There was never any kind of negativity at all in my experience. There were so few Muslims in Christchurch in the 70s and 80s that really there wasn't enough people to even really cause friction. So I only had positive outlook on Islam and Muslims right from the get-go. So when I made a more profound contact with Muslims after March 15, it was very easy for me to translate from my own experience earlier to where I am now. For me, without doubt, the March 15 event was a defining event. I did not know a huge number of Christchurch Muslim people before March 15, but I knew several, and my friend Roshan's father was one of the people who was martyred on March 15, so I knew the moment that there were shootings at the masjid that Haji was probably already dead. So it immediately had a very profound effect on me, but when it first happened, you have a feeling of powerlessness. There's nothing much you can really do. So after the second night, what I would do every evening and into the night would be to walk from my house through Hagley Park and to outside the Al-Noor Masjid, as close as you can get with the police cordon. And I did that every night for about 10 days after the shooting. So it was just a compulsion. It felt like I had to do it. No one told me to or anything like that. I just felt like I needed to be close to Al-Noor, and I couldn't really explain to you at the time why, but it was a very, very strong feeling. And when I went there was very rarely were there other Kiwis. There were some Kiwis there. Mostly it was police officers, and so I had a lot of talk of a spiritual nature to some of the police men and women that were standing guard, and that first week was just a period of just not knowing what to do. But when the call went out for everybody in Christchurch that wanted to go to the funerals, I was really keen to go. The Thursday, the first lot of funerals, unfortunately I was still dealing with anxiety, and I had an anxiety attack that morning and didn't go, and I felt really guilty. The next day there was a ceremony at Hagley Park, and the invitation went out again to go to the funerals, and I went that time in the bus with a whole lot of other Muslim people and just started talking to them and just immediately felt at home. So I went to the funerals, we went through the funeral services, and it was at the funeral service that I met my brother Muhammad Noor, who I teamed up with, who's a Muslim from Hamilton, and together we started going out and visiting people that had been injured. We started visiting people in their homes, and we sort of made a base at the Hagley Park Refugee Centre, which is actually Canterbury Cricket's place where they have all their events. So they gave the hall to the Muslim community to use for about 2 or 3 weeks after the shootings, and that's where I spent most of my time after that, hanging out with Muslim people, talking to them about their lives, about their faith, and about my ideas of faith and my ideas about God, and finding not to my surprise, but somewhat to my surprise, that almost everything that I'd come to believe about God was exactly how Muslim people feel about God. So our ideas of paradise, our ideas of Allah, our ideas of angels. I never knew that other religions even knew about jinn. I just assumed that was something that I knew that other people didn't. So a lot of these things, to my surprise and amazement, turned out to be just part of Islam. So in those few weeks, there was a very profound change in me. I realised suddenly I was around people that I could just immediately relate to and immediately have very meaningful conversations with. And Muhammad Noor spent 2 weeks in Christchurch, then he went back home to Hamilton. He came back, I think it was in June, and that's when I did Shahada at Linwood Mosque and became Muslim. But I knew he was going to ask me. Other people had said, about becoming a Muslim, and I just said, look, it's going to wait for Noor to come because he was the person who introduced me to Islam. And so when he came back, I immediately did Shahada and became Muslim. Well, I was quite nervous, I have to admit, and my anxiety by this stage was much, much lower, but just an incredible feeling of emotions, it's very hard to put into words what the emotions really are, because they're so strong, and like, if I think about it, you almost start tearing up. But it was just a profound feeling of peace and security, and also being loved by a whole bunch of people. Even though I didn't know a lot of these people well, I knew that they had only the best of intentions to me, and so it was really just a profound feeling of peace, to be honest. That was really it. But it's very hard to put into words because these aren't things you feel every day. These are very strong emotions that sometimes only come out in very, very bad situations. So it was very strong reaction, but to put it into words is difficult. But I would say peace is probably the word. When you think about what salam means, that's how I felt at the time. Very, very good. Most of my friends are atheists or totally not interested in religion, so they were like, oh yeah, that's fine, and just carried on. It really didn't make much difference. My mum, on the other hand, I rang her and I said, I've got something to tell you, Mum. And I said, but I don't want to tell you over the phone. I'm going to come up to Nelson and tell you. So I drove up to Nelson, and as soon as I got out of the car, she said, you've become a Muslim. She knew when I said that. So I wouldn't say they were confused. They were just happy that I was happy. For non-Muslims, I don't know if it makes a huge difference. I've never had negativity of any sort whatsoever, none. But to be honest, I think it goes over most non-Muslims' heads what really happened. Unless you've been through that process, it's just, I don't know how much of a meaning it has, but parents were supportive, but not overly. So yeah, I was just sort of left to my own devices. I think I'm the sort of person that does things which I believe to be correct, and I do things in my own way. I'll always answer to corrections and such, but I've always had my own mind, so when I choose to do something, I don't think anyone was particularly surprised that I would choose to do something like that. If anyone that knows me well knows that spiritual ideas are actually at the top of my mind most of the time, if you really get to know me. So parents were not particularly surprised. My dad just didn't really care that much. He still kept asking me if I wanted to have a drink with my meal and things like this. So I don't even know how much he noticed, but I shouldn't be cruel. That's probably unfair. They just didn't really probably understand really what becoming a Muslim actually is. So unless you've gone through that or know Muslim culture, I don't know how much other people really get it. Certainly if I tell Muslim people, then it's a very big deal. And I've been told how lucky I am many times being a Revert Muslim. So for Muslims, it's definitely a big deal. For non-Muslims, not so much. They live in Nelson now, so I only see them maybe 2 or 3 times a year. When I'm there, I just go off into my room and pray. I don't do anything in front of them. I don't think they don't think they really see that much difference. They know that if there's not a Nelson's so small, there's not a full-time masjid there, but they have a Methodist church that's used when there's enough people there to have a service. So I will go there as well if there's people going. But for them, no, I don't think it's. They're not young anymore, so the idea of change is probably a little bit hard for them. But I don't honestly think it's made much more of a difference to tell Muslim people that I've become a revert than it is for them. Dad stopped asking me if I want a glass of wine with my meals now, which is nice, and they obviously know that other things I won't do. But apart from that, no. Broadly, I'm the same person to them as I was before. I think it's fair to say. Like any good parent, they want their son to be happy and fulfilled in their life and such. So they could tell straight away that I'll tell you one thing if you like. This is how much I forgot myself during the 2 or 3 weeks I was at the Hagley Centre. One day, out of the blue, my mum rang me up, and she said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't ring you." And I said, "Why? Why are you sorry?" And she said, "It's your birthday." And I had actually not realised that it was actually my birthday. I'd become so lost in this and so become so much of a part of this amazing community that I had forgotten that I even had my birthday. So when I'm with Muslim people and Muslim community, it's just, I don't know, it just feels better for me. I just know it's better for me to be around Muslim people. I just feel safer around Muslim people. So when I'm out in the non-Muslim world, I'm more or less the same like I was before, with a few exceptions, obviously. But when I'm with the Muslim people, then that's where I'm really in me. That satisfies me. Yeah. So what can Islam offer to everybody? First of all, we have an amazing community. So for me, the thing that drew me into Islam was the people. The practice of being a Muslim, almost all of it I found really, really easy. I'd already stopped drinking alcohol, I'd already stopped doing a lot of things. I had to modify my diet a little bit, but not by much. For me personally, I think the best thing it does is it gives your mind discipline. I found praying 5 times a day dreadfully difficult at the start. I'd forget. Once I started putting on my phone, it was easier, but I found that hard. But what I've discovered is that it very much disciplines your mind. So I think for young people today in a world that's just so weird and so many people have ideas, to have something really sure in your life that's solid and doesn't change at all, that's a very, very secure and good feeling to have. And I think a lot of people in this world don't have that feeling at all. So I would say it's a combination of the feeling of security plus the feeling of being in a really positive community that you can understand. It's funny actually, definitely things I didn't expect happened. So I became a lot less interested in like mass media and entertainment and things like that. It's not that I became more serious, I just found that those things just weren't interesting to me anymore. So I guess I'm much more focused on people now than I used to be. I'm just trying to think what else in my life would be radically different. What Islam's done for me is it's just regulated the day.